Without going into a lot, first of all, Sam, I appreciate your committing to the continuality of people in film here. You know, you talked about Oscar Michaud, and we don't want to go without mentioning William Foster, who in 1910 started the first black film company in Chicago. So there's a continuation, and that's what Sam was talking about. But I also find it ironic that Michael Kahn, who was the editor for Spook to Set by the Door, was the editor for Lincoln recently. He also did Raiders of the Lost Ark and Jurassic Park. And the music for the film was done by Herbie Hancock, which was the first film that Herbie, I think, did the music for. So a lot of times when you look at black film, and I hate the term exploitation, especially when black exploitation, especially when it's referred to a film like Spook to Set by the Door, because it's anything but that. To be exploited, it had to be something that was done by white people specifically to make money. So for example, I did work on some black exploitation films, like Monkey Hustle, for example, which is not even on my resume, but I did get paid for it. When they were coming to town, they said that they had James Earl Jones and Lou Gossett, and then they showed up with Yaphet Kotto and Rudy Ray Moore. True story. When they said that they were going to do a party in the community for the scene that was done in the film, they showed up with lettuce and told everybody to act like they were eating. So that was a blaxploitation film in every extent of the word. So, you know, when you look down the cast, and as I was looking back on the people that we have lost, that was part of it, some incredible performers, incredible cast members. But this was my point, and I almost missed it, so I want to go back to it for a second. When you look at the beginning of what is considered the blaxploitation film period, and you look at the resumes of the people that were a part of it, you see the white members of the cast and crew going on to doing tons of films. You see the black people that were part of it doing limited work. And so our ability to produce is based on our ability to convince white people that our story is worth telling. A couple of days ago, I talked about if someone came into my office with the story of Shirley Temple, that I would say I'll do it if it's from the perspective of Bojangles. And so whenever we go to Hollywood in an attempt to create film, they begin to look at it from the perspective of how do they insert themselves in a way that they become the heroes. And so when you look at the legend of, I think it was called Beggar Vance.
Bagger Vance.
Bagger Vance, yeah. That Will Smith was in, whose story should that have been? You know? It could have very well been told from his perspective. So I know I didn't answer your question, but I got to run this somewhere.
I think of The Last King of Scotland, where suddenly the movie was about this fictitious white guy that didn't really exist in the context of Idi Amin's story, which it was a necessary part of getting that film done, I would assume, is kind of what you're saying.
Look, I have no patience whatever for black filmmakers who cry the blues about white folks won't finance their films. I know for certain the money is out there. Black people will finance films. And these people don't even bother to ask them. As well as being unaware of what I just said. There was a black film industry for more than 50 years in this country. Okay? What killed it? Technicolor. It became too expensive to make films. That's why the industry died. But there are 100 films produced by blacks on the internet. Check them out. First rate. Okay?
and I guess, Ms. Stewart, I kind of pose this question to you. In that context, I've heard rumbling from filmmakers and people I know, there's a lot of criticism for people like Tyler Perry, who now have multi-million-dollar machines in which they can put out whatever they choose to, and yet he chooses to put out a particular kind of work. Unless it stars him, then he can do the James Bond movie. Right. And I don't want to get into criticizing him individually or particular, but there are icons in Hollywood that are African American who I don't see putting money together to put together uniquely black films that talk about historical things or things of interest that aren't just entertainment.
Right. No, I think part of it is true. I mean, the money issue is kind of what we're talking about here. I mean, Sam's absolutely right. There are wonderful work that you can find on the internet. But then when people think about what is it to be a filmmaker, they think of Tyler Perry, they think of Spike Lee. They have a vision of that means some kind of blockbuster kind of profile, star profile, rather than some more kind of grassroots, independent filmmaking that can actually be much more meaningful for black artists and for black audiences to connect with each other. So I think if we could change our mindset and not expect that we should see Django, that's more important than seeing something that's produced by somebody, and being circulated online. If we can validate that kind of work, then I think that would transform the way that we think about these films. I also think it's just so important to think about the kinds of messages that this material has. I mean, just if you could even stretch your brain to put Sam Greenlee and Tyler Perry together on some kind of continuum, I mean, they're doing completely different things. This is a film, this is a novel that is about revolution, that's about social transformation, political transformation. That's not what Tyler Perry is talking about. And I think that's why many more people are familiar with Tyler Perry's work than they are with Sam Greenlee's work, and that's a shame.
Look, on the positive side, let me say this. I know several dozen young black filmmakers who are not only doing low-budget films, they're doing no-budget films, okay? And I think we're going to see, before I'm gone, the resurrection of an independent black film industry. Is Armand Scott here?
Yes, sir. He was.
Okay, Armand Scott is one of my proteges. He produced, directed, shot, and edited a full-length film, which is a takeoff on the Corsican brothers. Twins get separated. One grows up as a thug. The other grows up as a bougie. Is Utre here? Another is a brother called Utre Jewell, who played one of the gangbangers in the film. He's done a full-length documentary on the Bud Bellican parade. So I want to balance that out with what I said before. And I encourage these young filmmakers. They bring me the scripts, and I said, look, if you want praise, take it to your mama. Because I'm going to give you hard-nosed criticism. And they do. Some of them react in one way or another. Oddly enough, the ones who don't get most defensive are the women, the females. The brothers, some of them get a chip on their shoulder and try to defend what I've said, and I said, look, I told you.
Sam's nicer to the ladies.
That's probably true.
Pramon, in terms of making this film, at the time you're making it, Mayor Richard J. Daley was perhaps not an ally in the filmmaking process. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the challenges there as well as Sam.
In 2011, so we just mentioned that I produced of Boys and Men with Robert Townsend and Angela Bassett. That was the first film since the first daily that got the permission to actually use the Chicago seal in a film. Now, when we did the film, we had to go to Gary. Now, on the other hand, you know, you had Richard Hatchett up there. Richard Hatchett, yeah, who was the mayor, who allowed Sam to burn down 2 blocks, which was a wonderful thing. I also had to tell this little story too. You know, we were shooting in Gary, and we hired 300 actors for the riot scene. And some of those actors, as I was watching the film, I remember that some of those actors were just people that were on the street that just happened to be wandering by and thought that they were in the middle of a riot and got involved in the shot. And so, but we ran out of money. And we did, and the checks for the actors bounced. So Sam sends me back out to Gary to the police station a couple of weeks later to pay the extras because they finally did get paid. But it was difficult. You know, it's always difficult to do a film and then to run out of money and resources and then to continuously keep going with trying to make it happen. But the commitment that Gary and the mayor there gave us to do that film was absolutely incredible, and they gave us a lot of support to be able to finish it.
Yeah, what happened was we couldn't get permits to shoot it here in Chicago. I said, well, look, the hood in Gary looks like the hood here. Let's go over there. So I called the brother who had written a biography of Mary Hatcher. I can't think of his name offhand. And told him we wanted to shoot there. About a half hour later, I got a call from Mary Hatcher. He said, hey, Sam, what do you want? I said, I want to shoot the Spook outside by the door over here. He said, come on, tell me what you need. Now, the cops in the riot scene were not actors, okay? They were Gary policemen. The police cars were not rented. They were Gary police cars. And there was one helicopter shot in the aftermath of the riot. The chief of police came out and said, hey, Ivan, can you use a helicopter shot? I would say, hell yeah. It would have cost something like $200,000. So he got on his walkie-talkie. Here comes the helicopter, sat right down on the street. Cameraman got on with a handheld camera, and we got that shot. Okay? The film wouldn't have had the kind of quality that it had because of Mary Hatcher and his minions. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry he's not here tonight. Man, we had a lot of fun making that movie. One of the white crewmen said their pay was scale and collard greens. Because we showed them at the Gary YMCA. Soul food all the way. Let me say something about the blaxploitation movie. The film that kicked it off was Sweetback. Okay, I don't know if you put in that category or not, but what happened is Sweetback revealed a mass black audience that had been invisible. Okay? They've been going to school, those white movies forever. So Melvin's film kicked it off. What killed it was Spook. After Spook, they didn't want to see that bullshit.